Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get started. And other folks will come in, and this is being recorded for anyone who's not able to attend live. So Telma, since you're here, I'll give you a little tutorial before I put on music. I love to begin all of my classes with marching. So it's an energetic practice. First of all, there's two pieces. One, we put our hands at heart center. So when we do this, yes, absolutely, we're connecting into heart space, but we're also connecting our yin side and our yang side together. So placing our hands at heart center. And the march, it's going to be hard for me to show you my feet, but if you think of my palm as being the sole of the foot, oh, we've got Stacy Yardley coming in.
Hey,
and Suzanne. Woo! All right, everybody's coming in. So if my palm is like the sole of my foot, the march is a flat-footed march. So if the other palm is the floor, you can just see it's not like this. It's a solid connection with the earth. So we are going to put on, for anyone, and I'm going to speak about this later, the film Encanto that's on Disney right now is friggin' off the hook. It's so powerful. So we're going to put on one of the songs from Encanto, if I can get it up.
So I'm not sure if you got this, Stacy and Suzanne, but we're going to march for a little bit with music on, and both of you, welcome. It's nice to have you here this morning.
I'm going to do this right and share my screen. You can do some welcomes while I'm getting our sound in place.
So marching is going to be something that is going to ground us in this moment, into our feet, into the earth, celebrating life. So welcome everyone. And here we are. So we are going to spend an hour, a little bit, maybe sometimes a little over, but into this breast care, self-care. Self-care is breast care. We're switching it around sometimes. I'm Chantal, and I am a licensed social worker and a coach, and also someone who is dealing with breast cancer ongoingly. So I speak from experience in terms of the breast care, self-care piece. And what I appreciate about what you brought in this morning, Melissa, is the correlation between childhood trauma and the hidden impact of childhood trauma on health long-term. And that's one of my stance in life, is really having and helping people make that correlation, because parts of us have been left behind when we're traumatized. And when I say trauma, it doesn't have to be something like major. It could be a smaller thing, but the truth is we bury sometimes the parts of us that are not able to deal with the emotional impact of what happens in our childhood. And sometimes we carry on. So when you're talking about life force, Melissa, you really are talking about the places inside of us that are alive and the places inside of us that have shut down. And inviting the life force to go back into the places that have shut down. And I'm saying this because this morning, the word that I heard in my meditation was, what is life enhancing? What would be life enhancing? And looking at what is life depleting. And self-care is really about that piece. How can we support life into our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual being? Take it, Melissa.
All right. We'll go ahead and pull up our slides.
So I also want to say this is an interactive workshop. So that is at any point in time, we're going to pause, ask questions. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. And there's the chat. So if you have any comments or any questions, feel free to post in the chat. And again, this is recorded. So if you feel like you don't want to have your beautiful self on the screen, you can just take the camera off, but we're happy to see you here. We're glad to see you here.
Yes, and please feel free to interrupt us at any time, because you're the reason why we're here today.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to move you folks over here since it's blocking my screen, and there we go.
You want to talk about yourself a little bit, Melissa, before we go in?
Sure. Yeah, you kind of already launched us into that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, what brings us here today? So many things, and so many things that even that I introduced with the concept of this film. So essentially, I know there are things that I'm not conscious of, but there are things that I'm very conscious of that I chose to step into in this lifetime in terms of traumas. And I did not become aware of them until around 2006, 2007. And as I began, and at that time, I was a very I had to think about it now because my brain is so merged. I was a very left brain Western physician in family medicine, an MD trained at IU. And at that time, as I was experiencing and awakening to the trauma I'd experienced, I had all these different physical things that were happening. So in addition to the emotions and the consciousness, I was having migraines. It shifted my menstrual cycles. I had allergies. I even developed hypothyroidism. So all of these things happening in a very short period of time where it's like, this has to be connected. And so Western medicine, there was no place for me to map out what those connections were. And so that began the journey for me of connecting first the mind to the body, and then eventually stepping into the level of spirit, which really drew it all together for me. So that up-leveling into spirit began in 2009 when I began training with Grandmaster Nanlu. So Grandmaster Lu, that message of spirit is, from the spiritual perspective, there is no disease or illness. There's only undiscovered purpose. And when I received that message, it was like a thunder, lightning. It just was like, boom, okay. And then from that point on in 2009, it was like, what the heck does that mean? Like, I know, my higher self knows, but that cracked open this whole journey that part of my rational mind was like, oh, this is about what you're putting out in the world. Sure. But if you're going to do that, there's a whole lot of healing that has to go on for you to be able to truly up level to that level of alignment. So that's what my journey has been that led me to go through all this deep healing and exploration and expansion of my practice to incorporate Chinese 5-element consciousness, this concept of the connection with spirit, embodying it, and then eventually starting my practice. So one of Grandmaster Lu's specialties is breast cancer. So I was gifted this very unique angle and approach of how to see breast cancer, which I'll give you a little taste of today. And Chantel and I connected, as we learned at the preamble here. She and I connected through a conference in the spring of 2021. There was 800 people, and she and I were in a breakout room, and it was like, you. So here we are collaborating in 2022. So Chantel.
Yes, I am actually going to add a little bit to the story. And thank you, Melissa, for making the thread. Yeah, I know sometimes it's tricky. Oh, hello, Angela. I see that Angela joined us. And Gina. If we're missing some names, welcome everyone.
Welcome everybody.
Yeah, we're happy to see you here. So yeah, my story is really an interesting journey. It's 20 years and 30 years in self-development, personal growth. And that's the challenge in what my story is, because I felt like I did a lot of personal growth, a lot of therapy, a lot of energy anatomy, alignment with spirit and spiritual practices, name it, you can check the box. And the reason I'm saying this is because when I got diagnosed for the first time in 2014 with breast cancer, I was really shocked. And I also decided to go deeper and dig deeper in life purpose, like really looking at where was I not living my purpose? And where was I not in alignment with who I was? And I was at that point married and chose to leave that marriage and just to really go into what is really me and what is, what am I here to do on this planet? I can't say I've always known, but I knew, but somehow there was a desire to kind of get more clear and in alignment with that. And that got me to go back to school because I had I had a coaching practice, and I wanted to know how to work with people that had trauma, because there was trauma in my past. And there was also a lot of my coaching clients were coming in with trauma history. I wanted to have better tools under my belt and in my tool bag to deal with this. And along with that was a training in mind-body psychotherapy and energy anatomy. So these tools are very powerful because they're really about not so much doing research from the mind, because the mind can go either way, right? We go one way, 5 minutes later, we go another way. And so trauma happens often as at a nonverbal level or very early in time. So it's very hard to put words into what we've experienced. And yet, when I came across the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, which is the longest study that was ever done, for 17 years, they followed people. And they basically correlated early onset of trauma with 20 years later, symptoms like cancer and heart disease and high blood pressure and digestive issues. And so I got very interested into knowing from my own perspective, and also in helping others, how to, first of all, go into that space. Because to me, there was something really unfair about this. Unfair as in, here we are, we have had trauma, and then here we are living the lingering and long-term effects of trauma without really being able to grasp what it is. So I sort of I made it my mission to really empower myself and empower others. The word empowerment is really important for me. Now, I got a second diagnosis, and that hit me hard in 2019, where I was like, okay, I've done it all. Why now? And what more? So the what more is really that, I want to say, a presence. What I cultivate right now in this process is a presence to loving all the parts of me. Like, I've done a lot of work in understanding and being with, but now is really about expanding my heart into the parts of me that have been left behind. And I really do believe that this year for me, 2022, is really about self-love and self-care. No matter what happens, I say to myself, I love you. So I'm inviting you today, all of us, to be in that space of like, it's not about pointing out what's wrong, because it's real easy to get into, what have I done? What have I not done? Where did I miss the boat? What should I do? All these like to-dos to fix something wrong. And fundamentally, at the core of who we are, there is nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. So when there's a misalignment of energy, it's really about having the mind and the body and the emotions kind of like all, creating static. And it's kind of like, how do we come back? So working with Melissa really, for me, was really this, how do we join in into energy and enemy, not energy enemy, the 5 elements consciousness, and be able to foster an attitude of healing, foster the healing power of the body, emotions, mind, and our connection to spirit. And so both of us together, I think we have something pretty cool, but I'm glad to see you here. And I'm just wondering if anyone, I know I'm jumping in ahead, if anyone wants to say something about what brought you here today, I would love to hear. What about you, Melissa? Maybe you want to just post it in the chat if you want, or just come forward and just raise your hand, or just raise your hand by waving, whatever works for you. I'm just curious to see if anyone wants to say something about what we are doing today here together.
Yep. Stacy.
Hi, ladies. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So it's a little early. I'm on the West Coast. I was drawn, I forget how I found you. I might've been through a podcast or something. But I was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. I just had surgery 2 days ago. So I'm waiting for lymph node report and all of that. But I resonate a lot with you, Chantel, and Melissa, actually, because I have been in this work of like self-love, and I'm a coach, also an empowerment coach. And so I've been in the work of energy work and in the work of like all the things. And so here I am, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Is this like me signing up for the school of self-love again, like more and more? So I don't know. I just wanted to say I'm thankful to be here, because what you so far have presented, even just in the short amount of time, and what I've seen in the Facebook group, is it resonates with me deeply. And I'm more along the lines of energy medicine and healing mind, body, soul. And so I'm familiar with ACE stuff, right? I'm familiar with all of that. And so I'm like, okay, what have I missed? So, it's hard, because I feel like, what have I missed? What's here for me to heal more so, right? That needs to be healed. My dog just died 2 days ago. So now I'm experiencing even more grief. And I'm like, why does this have to happen now? Why does the grief have to come in now, when I know that grief is in the chest, and all of that. So it's just like, so I'm just wanting to get to the other side so that I can get to the good part of this, but just in it right now. So I'm grateful to be here. So I just wanted to share that.
Stacey, thank you for sharing. As I'm feeling you as you talk, you know, surgery is pretty intense. I went through it. And also with your dog, I lost mine again 2 years ago in a very dramatic way. So what I want to say as I listen to you is you didn't miss anything. If there's a way you can just maybe put a hand on your heart and just say you never missed anything. It's not about anything you have not done enough of. So kind of settle in the reality that you know, like deep inside your heart, nothing has been missed. And maybe the invitation is to be with us from a place of curiosity, but also deep self-care. Like, I'm saying this, I'm inviting you because I feel it, you know, I did the same thing. Like, what have I missed? What's wrong? Well, and gosh, I bit myself over the head for so much, for a lot of time on this one. So I'm inviting you with me if you want, just to kind of breathe into your heart and just have space for you to be where you are now and just really embrace your heart, you know. So thank you. Yeah. And yeah, keep that hand on your chest. It's just nurture the space that you got surgery with. Yeah. Okay. Do we have anybody else on the chat? Angela.
Yeah, we had a message from Angela that she's here to understand a different view of breast cancer because of people she knows who's had breast cancer. Right. So yeah, beautiful to be open to receiving a different way of seeing. And my message back to her is that everything we're talking about is also about prevention, the true prevention. That was another piece that opened me up to a bigger perspective as I realized how limited Western medicine is when it comes to prevention. It's more about early detection. So this angle completely flips that on its head.
Yes, and then prevention, and also if you're on the other side, like, you know, Stacey and I, it's the continuation of empowering healing, allowing for healing to happen. No matter where we are, there's never a beginning end. You know, there's never a beginning and then we're done, we're doomed. It's like it's a constant process. So, all right, thank you very much, everyone.
You want to take us through a little rundown of our agenda?
Yes. A little rundown of the agenda. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to do a brief centering. And after that, talk about the Meridian System, talk about the breast and the Heart Chakra. And for me, they're related. Melissa will have a map of the breast. And then we're going to go into the heart center, the Heart Chakra. And that's my map. It's the 7 centers of energy called chakras. And E = mc² is about how energy, everything is energy. So how do we allow energy to really be flowing and enhancing life? And breath, prana, life force, every moment as you listen to this today with us, even if you can invite yourself to just breathe deeper. Settle into your breath. Allow for breath to flow because life force comes through our first breath as we are born and the last breath we take, right? And then how does healing happen is what we're going to be looking at from both perspectives. And the 5-element consciousness, I love this map and looking at how it's intertwined and giving us some practical tools on how to reinforce the different systems, the element system. Energy anatomy, we talk about the 7th chakra and disruption when that happens when we have trauma. And it's a thing that we're not, you know, necessarily, we're not responsible for it. It happens because our soul is here to help us heal and survive. So the disruption in the chakra systems happen from a survival standpoint, and our soul can find a way back. And it's one thing that Melissa, also you say that for every illness, and I know I don't want to steal your thunder, so you'll be talking about it, but it's like, how do we have the key that opens the door when there's a center, a place of disease? Because in every disease, there's a key that opens the path to healing. And then tools for transformation, if we get there. And then movement, having faith. So usually we have a big agenda and we don't get to the end. So I'm going to stop here because we may not get there. So that's it. Welcome. And I think we're going to just do a brief centering before we go into the Meridian System.
Yeah, here, let me stop the share.
So I'm just basically inviting you to lean back wherever you're seated. And what I mean by leaning back is really first subtle. Like imagine you have sand that you can pour through the crown of your head. And the idea is just to let the weight of your body the calmer the nervous system and the immune system has a chance to balance itself out. So kind of feel that from the crown of the head to the middle of the brain, to the throat, to the heart, into the solar plexus. Let the energy settle. Take some deep belly breaths, 3 of them if you can. Deep breath into the nose. And either exhale to the mouth, release your jaw. You can even let a sigh go out. Another deep breath. And exhale. And continue breathing as I just invite you to imagine something that is bringing light from the crown of your head. So imagine the crown of your head being like a funnel. And then you open that funnel to the energy that comes from the sky, the universe, the sun, whatever image comes and helps you. And let this energy come from the crown of your head. And imagine it's called a pillar of light, that it comes through and clears up your brain and around your head, helps you relax your jaw and your shoulders. Open your throat by pulling your ears gently back. And then relax your heart center, your shoulders, and then your solar plexus. So relax where you're breathing. And then the belly. And then imagine that line of energy, that central pillar going through your sits bones into the center of the earth. And then you can hook yourself, put a little hook around the center of the earth. And let that central channel be here today. Lean back. And the reason I say lean back is because there's 2 parts of it. The front is about individual self, and the back is more about universal self. So as we're here together, we tap into a consciousness together. There's no mystery. We're here together. No mystery you're here with us. No mystery that Melissa and I are together. So just let yourself open to that wider consciousness for a moment. And know that you need to hear, what you need to feel, what you need to sense is already present in the field of consciousness that we create together. So again, we started with our hands in front of your heart. Bring those hands together again. And just for a moment, if you can, just bow your head to your own heart, because there is deep, deep wisdom. Our soul connects to our heart. And just thank your soul for being here. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And continue breathing as you listen to information. Information can be overwhelming. So let your body lean back as you take the information. It's not about grasping. It's about settling into who you are and hearing the truth that will work for you. So, Melissa.
Okay. Okay, I just have to move you guys again. Continue. Okay. So, Meridian System. Wow, I love this image because it just so beautifully portrays the magical glowing system, you know, we still have Christmas lights around. This is what we all look like. We were able to see our energy grid. All of these energy lines that connect everything from above, below, and to every single organ system within our body, to every single tissue, every single cell, impacting organ function. Energy travels through these lines faster than the speed of light of consciousness, which I'll speak to later. So when there is flow, this is basically what Chinese medicine is all about. If there is flow in the system, and that doesn't mean that it's always like a whoosh, it will come and go depending on what's happening, but things aren't getting really, really stagnant. Flow, when flow happens, healing follows, period. So everything in Chinese medicine is about opening up more flow in your meridians. So in addition to connecting you to all of you, this is your way of connecting to all of life. So how you connect to the information you're taking in, which is why practices like we just went into and leaning back to receive is so powerful, because you are this energy system that can receive in that way. This is how we connect to other individuals, to our work, to everything in life. So and when we think of the breast, there are 3 main organ systems that relate to the anatomy of the breast. So in this midsection here, in zone 1, and I'm going to speak to what these organ systems are about. We did talk about the kidney a little bit when we were doing the marching and tapping into that life force energy. So from the center of the nipple in, kidney and liver, directly through the nipple, that's going to be stomach. And in that outer zone, zone 2, this is the liver and the stomach together, which is the most common location for tumors to occur.
Oops. Oh, we're already there?
We're already there.
Okay. Awesome.
We're already there.
I thought it went there. So I want to go back to zone 1 when you talk about the kidney and liver energy, because like you mentioned before, kidney is life force. And it's also how we connect to life itself and the principle of life. So, and the reason I'm bringing this in is because I'm going to go back to the ACE study and the Adverse Childhood Experience study and talk about the heart chakra. So I may be skipping ahead. I was going to talk about the 7 chakras, but I'm going to bring it in a little bit right now, because health, foundationally speaking, the first chakra is about health, is about community, family, is about money, and about home. So now these 4 quadrants in the first chakra are foundational when we're born, little babies. We're being held, hopefully, with tender, loving care. We have a home, we have food, we have safety. That's, ideally speaking. There's no lack, and our parents hopefully are grounded into something. I know it's stressful to have babies and little kiddos, but at the core, if parents make the decision to have children, we hope that they have thought somehow about what it means to have a child. So it is disruptive, but at the core of it, when we're born, we really depend on our family, we depend on our caregivers, we depend on the environment. And so that first chakra is the root chakra. The closer to feeling safe and secure we were, the more rooted we are. Now, if there's disruption in the root chakra, it disrupts everything else on top of it. So when health is being disrupted, it's really often connected to that first chakra. So I'm saying this because in order to find healing back, it's important to not skip ahead. Like the heart chakra is definitely related to breast cancer. But at the core, if we can root down and have practices that help us undo the fight, flight, freeze response, being able to recognize what it does when we get scared and be able to have tools in our tool bag to calm down the fear, then we're building the foundation that is underneath the other chakras. So we have the root chakra, and that's kidney, and its liver is after that. So basically we go into the second chakra where emotions are, and then we go in the third chakra where the liver and the stomach are, and then we go into the heart. So these 3 levels, are usually the foundation underneath the heart. So think about, I'm going to take a sip. So when we think about the heart is a pillar, and underneath this is the foundation. So it's funny. Sorry, it's funny. I'm talking about this and
Clearing.
Here I am in the throat. So the way we love ourselves is the way we were loved. We cannot learn something that we haven't seen or experienced. And the way we don't love ourselves is how we have also learned. And we inherit a set of emotions and beliefs attached together. So when we go into the heart chakra, we go into that principle of self-love and also universal love. So that's why I was saying lean back, because imagine for a moment, two hands in the back where your shoulder blades are, and you can let the space between your shoulder blades, there's a little space there in the mid back, soften. So it's the trusting the universe and universal love that kind of gets triggered in there. So when we're disrupted in childhood, we don't trust, and I don't know about you, but I know for me, it's been a practice to start trusting universal energy, trusting that I am being held by higher forces, not just by my own sense of self. So disruption in the heart center will be about the lack of self-love, the lack of self-appreciation, self-care. It's almost like we don't believe that we deserve to have that sense of I matter and taking care of my physical, emotional, mental body and spiritual body. So there's a lot of grief stored in the heart chakra. So after, I know my first surgery, I literally cried for an entire year. And it was very strange to me because I wasn't somebody to cry before. And every single day, I used to joke about it at some point because I was like, wow, on cue, here we are, I cry again. And it was like an hour every single day. So all the grief that was stored in my heart sort of cracked open, and there was a release of energy that happened. So emotions are stored in our organs, and also stored in the different center of energy. So it's really important to have a practice to identify what stands in the way, not to point out what's wrong, but what kind of beliefs / emotions have we inherited that makes us be, oh no, my time doesn't matter, I don't matter, I'm going to put myself second, third, and fourth, and everybody else is more important. I'm going really fast over this, but it's really at the core of the heart center. The heart center is really about opening, receiving, and giving. We cannot give from an empty cup. So it's important to fill our own cup before we give. And if we haven't learned that, basically it's never too late. It's coming back to, where do I fall short in paying attention to me every single day? How do I get up in the morning? And I'm saying I as in all of us. How do I get up in the morning and say, what is most important for me today? And really listen to that. So that's it for the heart chakra.
So when I was talking about that energy grid and the flow in that energy grid, the question becomes, how do we create more flow? We are literally energy transformers. In every moment, we are shifting energy between that free flow state and different levels of stagnation. So when we look at this theory of relativity and use it and apply it through this healing concept, the big E is that free flow state. And on the other side of the equation is energy that's become stuck. So when we talk about becoming stuck, there are different levels of progression of stuck. So you can have stuck that's like, oh, something kind of comes and then it goes. You can have stuck where that pattern comes and it stays stuck. And then you can have patterns that the constellation of that stuckness in the different energy lines becomes a visible level diagnosis. So you could develop hypertension, diabetes, hypothyroidism, allergies, PMS, etc., depending on where that stuckness is happening. And at the most extreme end of the spectrum, when energy is not flowing, then eventually it can transform and actually form a mass. The magic of us being energy transformers is no matter where you are on that spectrum of energy stagnation, your absolute miraculous divine potential that we all have, no matter where you're at on that spectrum, is the ability to be able to transform stagnant energy, whether it's just a little stuck or a lot of stuck, back into free flow. So when I said the C squared, and I kind of gave you a little tap into that earlier, faster than the speed of light of consciousness. So what I mean by that is that, especially around the emotions and spirit. So one of the things kind of grounded and practically you can think about. So when Stacy was talking about, well, first of all, she's had two, really intense things back to back. So when you get that diagnosis, when you find out about your dog and you go through that kind of experience, you immediately will feel that in the body. So it could be felt through the chest. You could feel like a tightness that happens, and then the emotions may come or may not if we're suppressing them. Could be through the digestive system where suddenly it gets crampy. Maybe you even have to go to the bathroom because it's just so much, you're overwhelmed to process. Looks like we have somebody in the chat. Are you able to see the
Stacy.
chat?
Yeah, she's actually saying 2 surgeries in 3 weeks too.
Oh my
Stacy, my
gosh.
goodness, honey, put hands on your heart as you listen to us.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
before we leave, I'm going to teach you a little practice to really be able to nurture that space right now. It needs a lot of love. So yes, that's a little taste of how powerful we are. So everything that we're talking about is about how can we how can we shift the energy from that stuck state to that free flow state. So a big piece of this is the things that we've already been talking about, is opening up the mind, opening up the consciousness to this higher level understanding. Because if we're really stuck in the mind, things aren't going to flow in the body.
Yes. And so this concept of energy could be a little tricky, because at the end of the day, I mean, we all feel energy. So I'm going to go back to basics, right? Before we get into the energy of the body, because it's hard to feel the meridians and know what energy is going and what's not going. But at the very simple level, like there's what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I'm going to simplify it that way. So when we enter spaces, either your own space and or other people's spaces, most of the time, other people's spaces will influence our own space. We sense, we can enter a room, we know immediately whether or not the energy is good or not so good, supportive or not so supportive, loving or not loving. So when we're children, we actually pick that up. I say that us as children, are like psychic sponges. I don't know if you've ever been around people that tell you one thing, but then you hear another thing, you feel another thing. That's where dissonance happens. It starts happening early in life. Like I know in my family system, words were mouthed, and there was the energetic reality of what actually was happening. So 2 things were happening, and they were not congruent. So what we do and the way we relate to ourselves is which I said what in the beginning, is how we were related to. So let's say something doesn't feel good in your body, yet you have trained your mind to bypass this. And I mean, pretend it doesn't exist or skip over it really quickly and just move on, move forward, pretend it's not happening. All that stuff is about neglect. It's self-neglect. So go back to basics. Energy that feels good is good. And if it doesn't feel good, it's not good. So when we talk about self-love, it's that basic stuff. Like you get up in the morning and you say to yourself, okay, there's usually a list of things to do. And there's also what you would like to do, what would feel good, be supportive to you. Now, if you're a survivor, chances are you bypass what I would like to do, and you do what needs to be done. And you kind of plow forward, we plow forward through our life doing what needs to be done. Now, that's again, going back to the heart. Self-love is about loving what you love. It's about giving ourselves the gift to do what feels good. And, as you listen to me and I listen to myself, I'm like, wow, how often can I do this all day, right? There's things that I do that I really don't want to do on a daily basis. But it's like, how do you make the scale start to even out, right? So energy is really on that level. Self-love is about, hey, am I filling my cup or is my cup empty? And if it's empty, what keeps me from really focusing on that? And what feels good is good to you, and what doesn't feel good is not. So having boundaries in recovery from breast cancer and or in the process is really important, because boundaries are about saying no to what's not right to you and saying yes to what feels right. And you're the only person who can determine that. And that's why it's tricky, because when you grow up in a dysfunctional family system, people will tell you. They'll tell you what you need to do. They'll tell you what you need to say. They'll tell you how to behave. And they may make you feel wrong for having spontaneous movements of energy. Children are bundles of energy. We are all, as children, bundles of energy. If we're surrounded by people that are saying no to that, they kind of go like this. shame on you, don't do this, you have too much energy, how dare you, you shouldn't be doing what you love. That kind of stuff is like stored in the system. So when we talk about energy, we talk about kind of like the connection between what's in here, our beliefs, and the impact that it has on our emotions, and then the impact that it has on our body. And it's hard to pull this apart. I'm saying it, but it's kind of like the work is to just go simple. If it doesn't feel good, it's not good. So go back to that. How do I foster what feels right in my body? Because what feels right in your life-sustaining energy will feed your kidneys. If you allow yourself to express anger, and I think Melissa's going to talk about this, the anger, the emotions associated with organs. If you allow yourself to express anger, to feel and express anger, your liver doesn't get so stuck, and so on. So I'm going to not steal your thunder. I know, right, Melissa? You're like, yay! Go
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
funny when you were speaking. I'm like, what do you mean? When I was it was just when I was a child that I was a ball of energy that was being told not to make. You know, that's a really powerful thing, because if we're told that as a child, right, then we shut it down. We're all balls of energy. And so if you know, have that experience of like, it's not okay, then you've shut down that connection within yourself. That, I mean, that's a lot of what I teach is like, hey, when you were kids, you knew what you needed to do to move your emotions and move your energy. And you've just disconnected that intuitive, like knowing, that gift. So that's a lot of what I teach in my practice is like, hey, you know this, you already know this, you just shut it down. So reawakening it and as a practice, because of course we can't go running around all the time. Well, we may end up in jail, but in your own home, in your own car, you can do whatever the heck you want. So that is a big part of what I teach. I think I'm going to skip over that. I'm actually going to skip to this, and then I'll go back to your slide, Chantel.
Yep.
So the 5-element consciousness, and kind of to lean into what Chantel was talking about. This chart I know there's a lot of beautiful information in this chart, and I'm going to zero in a little bit of a focus on the 3 organ systems that are aligned with the breast anatomy. So I'm just going to single out the liver, the spleen, stomach, and the kidney. So I'll start with the liver because we were just talking about that. So the liver is our organ system that helps us to process stress, frustration, and anger. It is our organ system that wants us to move. It wants us to express ourselves creatively, emotionally, and always possible. It is the essence and energy of spring, which is a force in nature that literally a transformative force that can't be blocked. You know, spring is going to happen. It's going to break through, right time, right space. So one of the things that we, you know, just to go back to what we were talking about, that energy has to be seen, it has to be heard, it has to be expressed. When we've experienced various levels of trauma and suppression, we push that energy down. And when that energy is not allowed to flow, it becomes like a blocked volcano. So that blocked volcano can create all different sorts of things within the body. And at the most extreme end of that spectrum, it becomes a cancer. So really, even though we talk about all these different organ systems, the liver is the organ system that's about flow. For sure, every single condition that gets stuck in the body, there's some link with the liver, and especially when we're talking about cancer. And again, remember that that outer quadrant, that outer part of the breast, that is the liver and the stomach energy and cooperation, that's the most common location for tumors to occur. And this is why. So when we look at the stomach, that is our earth energy. That is our nurturing energy. That is the energy that must receive, process, digest, and transform everything. And food is like this much of that. Our stomach is needed to process all of our emotions, all of this information you're taking in, all of the energies that you have in your environment, anything that you're working on healing, right? So if you were to think of it like this processing of something that might have been traumatic, if you experienced a lot of trauma as a child, there are things that you weren't capable of processing in that moment. So you need enough energy, you need the right tools, you need the right support in order to go from this to that transformation stage. So we rely on our earth energy for a lot. The kidney, we've touched on that quite a bit. So that's the reservoir of the whole life force energy. So a piece of that is that's what you receive from mom and dad. But the bigger piece of it is what's happening in connection and relationship. And the most sensitive relationship with the kidney is that direct line to the liver. The kidney is the mother of the liver. So if we've had a lot of stagnation, a lot of suppression in the liver, the kidney's like, all right, I will give to you. So this is a very healthy, unconditionally loving relationship. She's going to give, she's going to give, she's going to give, but she's going to give to the point where it might create, too much depletion on her side. So you're going to see things becoming out of balance. The key is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only can get stuck in different places. So that's where, when we go back to that E=mc², we can tap into more free flow energy, even when it feels like, how can I? My reservoir feels so tapped out. That's only because it's stuck in different places. When we can free that up, then you have that energy you need to be able to heal. I'm going to go back to emotional blocks.
Yes. Actually, before we go there, Melissa, I'm just aware of the time, and I'm just wanting to check in with people. If anybody has any comments on question, because we're downloading a lot of information, energy, emotions, disease, lack of ease, how to regain balance. I'm just curious to see how, if anyone is inclined to share with us how this resonates with you, if anything resonates, and just anything that you have something to say about it.
Anything that this has, any questions you might have. Again, it's like, yes, we could continue to just feed you information, but if there's something that's really relevant to you that you have a question about, please feel free to ask.
Thelma?
Sure. So I am a Reiki practitioner, and I am in the process of getting certified with biofield tuning. And additionally, there are other types of energy work that my husband and I work with. So all of this seems very familiar. It resonates quite a bit. First time for me to put it in the context of health breast. Breast health. I'm so sorry. English is my second language. I put it backwards.
No worries, it's mine too.
Health. And so I am very interested in finding out everything that you're sharing. It definitely resonates. So thank you.
Yes, and Reiki is a beautiful practice. I mean, I have a lot of people that I know who practice Reiki, and it's a form of energy, and it is calling on higher energy to come through and help and facilitate healing on an energetic level, but also other levels. So thank you. Yes. I think you posted something in the chat, Stacy. Let me just see. Tracking all of it. Yeah. Resonates deeply. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So going back to this chart. So Alexander Lowen, who is the pioneer in bioenergetics, came up at some point with a map, which is the map of energy blocks and emotions related to organs. So we all know, I mean, we embody our emotions, or we don't. So when you were talking about, when Melissa was talking about anger, for instance, I know for myself, when I was a child, that there was no space in my environment to be angry, none. So I really learned to put the box, and I call it a compression box. It's like compress, 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 and just keep it tight. So, of course, liver, many years ago, I had the same issues Melissa had, which is, the PMS and all that stuff. And I did go to acupuncture. This was like 20 years ago. And that's when I got introduced to the idea of liver stagnation and really freeing up the liver. But the anger part took me a long time to be able to feel safe enough to have my anger. Now, when we talk about anger, when we talk about any form of emotions, there's this place in between. And I want to say this because sometimes we view emotions as an expression, like an overflow of, but sometimes I know for me, like I needed to create a container to be able to hold it. So I call it the place in the middle. So it's kind of like having our anger is about feeling the energy of anger, feeling the fire in the belly, Not so much going in the head about the story, because this is what happens most of us when we don't have a container that is able to hold the emotions, the energy rises up. So that map that we see, this map that we see right now on the screen, is basically where the container is not able to be flexible enough to allow the energy to flow. So if we look at anxiety, I mean, we all know this, right? Anxiety lives in the solar plexus and the chest. I mean, love lives in the heart. If we really are in love and we have a moment, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be an animal, or it could be anything that just opens the heart. We feel it in the heart center. Depression, it's all over, but it mostly is like the head coming into depression is repression of energy, repression of emotions. So it's kind of like squelching down. Contempt is all over, and I'm not gonna go through all of them, but basically this is you'll have access to those slides afterwards. But it's like, this, we all know what it's like to have butterfly in the stomach, or have tightness in the shoulders, or have jaw that is locked up, right? These are all emotions. So it's, again, the simplicity of this is just to say, track yourself. Like, the best gift we can give ourselves is to not disconnect from our emotional, energetic reality. Because that's what happens when we're children and we don't have people around us that can hold the container. That's what it is. Parents, technically, no one's perfect. But if they have a little bit of emotional intelligence, they're able to frame the container of our experience as children and give words and space. So if a child is angry and the parent said, hey, I see how mad you are, and I hear your no, because anger is about boundaries and it's about other things, but a lot of it is about boundaries. Like, the boundaries have been crossed and I'm mad. Like, I want what I want and I feel, I don't feel fulfilled. I don't get what I need, that kind of thing. So if a parent is able to hold that container, then we're learning through that experience to hold it for ourselves. If we don't have that, then we repress it. We don't know what else to do. So I'm wanting to plant the seed for all of us to not go into self-blame if we're repressing. Because we are doing the best we can at all times. Even today in this moment, as you listen to all this, I'm really praying that you don't go into self-beating and self-blame. It's not the name of that game. If healing has to happen with curiosity, compassion, care, calm, creativity. It's kind of like, how do we open our channel, like our consciousness, wide enough to hold what's happening in our physical, emotional, mental, and breathe through the experience, make space for it to be revealed. So a lot of the work that I do with myself and other people is have conversation with our parts. Our parts have a reason for being. Our body has a reason for holding. Energy, emotions, there's a reason. All of it has an intelligence. So as children, we're not stupid. We really do what we can to survive. The challenge is we get kind of locked in there. As we grow up, we have parts of us that have not grown up, and we need to establish and reestablish the connection with those parts of us, because otherwise they're hijacking the experience we live, hijacking perception we have of others, of situations. And then we're not here we are in the moment, the age we're at, like we're back to 4 years old, 8 years old. So that's kind of like where the energy gets locked, and how to unlock it is first of all, to be aware, take a breath and say, I'm mad. No need to reject that mad, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or I'm feeling depleted. All of this is like the first step. I am where I am, and then get curious. The higher self has curiosity, compassion, care. Kind of ask the part of you what's going on there. What do you need? What would you like me to know about you? So this is what we're going to be teaching. Melissa and I, we're starting a 5-week program next week. And I'm, again, brushing over it really quickly, but it's really about how do we manage the flow and not block it physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you stay at that blockage slide, please?
Oh, sure.
This visual representation of the emotions, is that the visual representation just at that moment when they are happening? Or is this a visual representation when it's getting blocked?
It's both. It's both. Like it, yeah, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, that was my first question. My second question is then diseases happen in those areas where where it's like colored and highlighted? Okay.
Yes, I can't say that it's a 1 + 1 = 2.
Right, but like in general, like.
Yes, exactly. Like people like heart diseases happen in the heart center. Like every center of energy has like, again, I'm back to the chakra system, which is the basis, the foundation. And yes, so as the energy rises, and if it doesn't have an outlet, a way to be integrated, like what Melissa talks about digestion, we're talking about digesting our emotional experiences. If we can't digest them, there's nowhere to go. They're all, they're kind of like freeze in time. And the more we repeat those experiences, because that's what's going to happen, right? If we have not been taught to love ourselves, we're going to keep recreating situation and relationships with people that are going to be unloving. And then it keeps feeding that I'm not lovable, and then the energy gets even more stuck. So that's the work of consciousness. It's my belief based on my own experience, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me right now is I come here as a soul in this physical experience to expand into consciousness and heal all the parts of me that need healing in order to expand into love with a capital L. I mean, that's the heart chakra is universal love. But really at the basis, yes. So if we can go into those experiences and embrace and really open the door, then energy will start flowing.
Thank you.
Yes.
One more thing I wanted to say before we kind of wrap up. These emotions that we may call negative, so important that it's like, that's not bad. And then there's good. We have to go beyond duality. It's all good. When we're angry, that is really a powerful message that's trying to guide us to see something. It's trying to show us something that's really stuck that wants to move. So the key is like, you have to recognize it. You have to practice playing with bringing that energy up and out, and then that wisdom and that message can flow through. So that's another piece of what Chantal and I will be opening to when we deepen our discussion. So what we'll be doing next week, let me see if I pull up that slide, if it talks a little bit more about it.
Oh, let's see. We have Angela asking a question.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
Angela is
please.
saying, as a Christian, do you know of Christians if you are not following the chakra? I agree with the principles you have on energy, but I don't see how chakra fits into the spiritual relationship to Christianity. Well, I cannot speak completely to this, but the chakra system is more like a map. Talking about Christianity is really, Christ consciousness is about love. And it is about flowing with universal consciousness. The energy of God is universal consciousness. And I'm saying this because, let's see, where are you, Angela? I just want to see you for a minute. Oh, you're behind. Okay. I'm saying this because I was raised and born Catholic. And so I know a little bit about the Christianity, theory and practices. And so the way I make sense of it for me is Christ consciousness is the energy of love, universal love. And if we can embrace that, the chakra system is just a map, it's kind of like, how do you allow for life force and love to come through your body, and your connection to your own spirit and to Christ consciousness is what will help healing happen. I hope it answers the question. I'm not sure. Let me know if you can in the chat. If it resonates. And maybe what I'd be curious to see is for you also how this makes sense, because no matter what the religion, like I'm talking religion, I'm talking about spiritual principles, but there's a place where they all interact and intersect when it comes down to universal love. That's been my belief anyways, my experience.
May I add that just a little something explanation? In the process of getting certified biofield tuning, the person that has put this method is very science-based and very detached from any kind of belief. And so for here, the explanation that was given to us is the chakras are actual energy centers. There is an energy flow and there is an energy motion or concentration that happens in the body. And for her, the closest description was chakras, even though it feels uneasy for her that it is sort of faith-based in Vedic traditions. So it is, those are energy centers. There's motion and there is something energetic happening that we don't have a better way to explain right now in our Western culture. So whether there is a belief or not faith-based, there is a science that we're still to discover about that. That's my 2 cents.
Yes. I see what you posted, Angela. Yes. To me, it's more about speak to self and God about emotional regulation than speaking to energy itself. Whatever works. I think that's really at the end of the day. Again, I'm back to keeping it simple. What feels good is good for you. Follow that map. You know, the map that allows for your own energy to connect and not be blocked is, you know, the map that you want to follow. We're just offering we are offering tools here. It's not the truth with capital T or the only way. So that's why we invite all of you to share. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece that I would say is energy is you. Your energy is you. So that is the self. And that is your communication with you. And it is connected directly with the divine, with God, with the universe, whatever you want to say. So, you know, that's been my experience of like, the more that I connect to whatever, the other things are just maps, whether we talk about the meridians or we talk about the chakras, those are maps that are trying to help the rational mind to wrap itself around something that is really profoundly expansive beyond our, you know, limited ability to understand. But when I start to just listen in to myself and I listen in and realize that all the energy experiences I'm having in my body are guidance and messages. And yeah, from God, when I talk about spirit, that's just another way to say it. That's what alignment is all about, right? Is about how can I more highly connect my presence here on planet Earth and my connection to my highest self as it connects into what my purpose is, because that's what the truth is about at the heart of the matter, and everything else is just kind of semantics. But again, to go back to what Chantel is saying, don't let it get you stuck in here.
Right. I see what Suzanne wrote. Jesus laying hands on and anointed and spoke healing to others to heal them. Yes. And here's the tricky part, not tricky part in what you said, but just a tricky part I know for myself, like we all have to believe, and not the belief of the mind, it's a belief of the heart that we can heal. And it's tricky when we face a diagnosis. I'm going to talk for myself. When I face this diagnosis of breast cancer, it's hard science, like having people talk to me about the longevity, the likelihood of this and that and the other. It's like, wait a minute, where is healing? Where is the possibility for healing? And that's, you know, going back to believing that healing is possible, no matter what the condition. And I believe that that's what Jesus Christ was doing, believing, looking at people and not seeing limitation, not seeing the body breaking down, but really looking at where is healing. And yes, it is possible to heal no matter what the condition. So that's what I connect to when you speak that way, because I really feel like, and I'm reading the chat again, abundant energy. Yes. So yeah, you know, what works for you to open your gate, the gate of consciousness that comes through you, that allows for healing to happen, and that fosters that really a commitment to believing that healing is possible no matter what. Just do it. Let that door be open and walk through it over and over again. Yes.
So speaking of gates, before we talk a little bit more about what's happening next week, I wanted to teach you all a powerful energy gate that's right here on your heart. So if you take the palm of your right hand and put it on the center of the chest between the breasts, and you take the palm of your left hand and you put it over the top, you're connecting heart to heart to heart. And you can close your eyes or not. So you're going to circle slowly feeling that connection with the chest. It doesn't matter which way you start. So when you do this practice, you're opening up all of the energy in the chest and the upper back. And you're opening up and connecting into heart space. So this is a beautiful practice that you can use anytime. Wonderful way to support yourself when you're falling asleep at night, or if you're feeling anxious or tense, or you're feeling any tightness in this area. So after about 2 minutes or so, you shift and you spiral in the opposite direction. So this taps into every level of connecting into this heart space. So even the processing of all the beautiful wisdom and information and sharing that's happened over the past hour or so, it helps to draw it from here, from the mind, and down into the heart. So that's yours to use anytime. That's the second energy gate. So I'm just going to share. Actually, do you want to just chat about what we have coming up?
Yes. So if you stay in your heart center, because I'm sort of taking a step back again about everything we talk about, often I say to myself, it's like walking two levels. Like if you want to prevent breast cancer, you want to help other people, you want to take care of your own health, or you have your own dealing with breast cancer, no matter where you are on a spectrum. You know, we are here with two levels of consciousness. One is we live day by day and we really don't have control over the big picture. So I want to say that because the invitation to join a 5-week program is to say, I'm going to do my best, gain the tools, and apply them to allow for healing to happen. So we're going to be very, very practical. It's going to be food, it's going to be movement, it's going to be emotional work, it's going to be connecting what we talked about today, like the energy of the different Meridian System and where they live in the organs and how to rebalance that, because really there are very simple ways. Exercise, I mean, it's back to basics: food, movement, emotional work, connection to spirit, all of it together. And I want to say this to you because we're giving you some tools. We're going to provide a lot of tools to work with. And at the end of the day, it's for you to bring them back home into your own system and make them work. And fostering the belief that no matter what, healing happens. And I just want to say, and at the end of the day, we don't have complete control. Because that's the dilemma that I work with every day. I'm like, okay, I'm still here. I'm talking about this. I deal with my own health issues and I deal with life and this is happening and that is happening. Okay, I don't know what the outcome will be. And I know that for today, I have some tools and I can apply those tools and really implement them. So that's the invitation. I want to say this because there's something about putting pressure and making things better for me that I'm taking out of the equation now. I'm saying it's an invitation for you to co-create the reality you live from the place of your heart, your higher spirit, and also your human self. Like, yeah, what do you put in your mouth every day to sustain health and healing? And what kind of movement and breath can you bring in? And what kind of practices? Melissa's going to invite us into Qigong Practices, and I've been teaching yoga for 25 years. So I have some physical, tangible practices that I do every day to help connect my human self with my higher self and be, and I'm reading, to be in the flow, not in control. Yes, exactly, Thelma, you got it. We can't control everything yet. We can embrace and start flowing with where the energy is going. So that's the invitation. It's a balance between very practical tools, diet, movement, breath, belief system, emotional work. And I mean, we have the item by item on the page. You want to post it there, Melissa, where the program, I think, is listed. Yeah. So any questions on this program? So basically the investment is $297 today. If you join in, we have some extras for you. And at the end of the day, it's funny. Yes, it's like I say, at the end of the day, it's really about an investment, who you are. And if you are so called to want to have us as partners, because that's what we're going to be. It's going to be an hour and a half every week with support in between, the private Facebook page, not the one that is breast care, self-care, but another Facebook page where you can post questions, share experiences, ask for support, request for help. That's what this is going to be about. It's a co-creative journey. And the reason we're creating this, I know for myself, like I'm always looking for places, and it's really hard to find, where the hope for healing exists, not just through medical, not through chemotherapy, not through radiation, not through surgery, but it's like how to foster healing from a global perspective and have that conversation. So I'm holding, that's the framework, and the I want to say the framework, but also I'm holding the intention for that to happen ongoingly with my own healing, but also for others. I have found it very difficult from a personal standpoint to find places where there's a conversation that is actually uplifting when you deal with any sort of illnesses that are life-threatening. It's very hard. I don't know what's your experience, Stacey. I see your head nodding, but it's like, I know every time I go see a doctor, I walk away and I have to recover. Literally, I have to recover emotionally, mentally, because it's like, oh my gosh, my perspective just got shrunk to this disease. Now I have to go back and expand again. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying just listen to a podcast that spoke about the difference between being cured and healed, and so important to heal ourselves. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So any questions on the 5? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So around the program, so you said an hour and a half, that's like a Zoom meeting, like a coaching call, or is it like an education call? What does that entail?
So the experience is going to be Chantal and I collaborating with each session having a deep focus. Each session builds upon itself. Today you got like a buffet taste of all the possibility. This is going to be a deep dive. And you're going to be, not only will it be information, but very practical. She's going to be leading you through guided meditations. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be actively teaching you the Qigong for breast health practice and other exercises that you can do, healing foods, like all that. We're just going to be taking it much deeper.
Melissa, can you share the screen? I just looked at the page that was created so that you can all see.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me just pull this up, and I'm gonna have to find it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to switch. You probably can click on your own link.
So this is what, this is what the page looks like. So there's a little more information, a little video of us. So you can see it talks about the program, that we're going to dive deeper into the 5-element consciousness, discover Qigong, active tools, how to really apply what we talked about today in terms of energy and the chakra system. So these are the 5 weeks. So week 1, we're going to be opening into the foundation. We'll be doing a self-assessment to help you with tuning in to where you're at when we launch the program. So that begins January 12th. Week 2, embodying energy. So diving deep into our inner wisdom as a way to guide us on our personal health journey. Deep 3, rooting from fear to wisdom. So I know it doesn't specifically say it, but each of these sections will be launching into specific aspects of that 5-element consciousness and the chakra system and how they align within the body. Week 4, mobilizing anger into action. I love these titles. Week 5, connecting heart and spirit into life. And this will apply to all you guys. We have 2 bonuses. If you sign up, you'll receive access. So I taught you Energy Gate number 2. You'll receive access to all 4 energy gates, a workshop that I taught, Healing is in Your Hands. And for Chantal, it will be her journey through the 7 chakras that you guys will receive access to, which is also a video. So
it's videos, and it's also handouts that are worksheets.
Beautiful.
So these things can sound a little, oops, you want to say that for a sec? I just want to go back for a minute. Just
okay.
to,
yes, if I can.
Yeah. It's okay. I love the picture though. Grandmaster Lou on top of a mountain. Yeah. So yeah, going back.
What would you like to see?
just the 5 weeks. Yeah, you got it. 5 weeks. Yeah. So foundation for healing. I mean, basically, I'm back to what I was saying earlier, but foundation for healing is really a healing crisis is a moment that calls for more attention and intention. So wherever we are on a spectrum, again, maybe not feeling ill, maybe not dealing with a health condition, maybe it's like slight imbalances, like Melissa was talking about, digestive, heart, blood pressure, I want to say neurological, but stress, anxiety, all of this is related. So I'm hoping and praying that people can start planting the seed before it gets to the end of the spectrum with diagnosis where the energy is completely stuck. So foundation for healing is really what we talked about today. There's the physical aspect, there's the emotional aspect, there's the mental aspect, and there's also the spiritual aspect. We can't separate all of this. We're a whole being. So it sounds a little, the reason I want to go back to it is because it sounds ethereal, foundation for healing, but really healing means whole, being whole. So wherever we cut off from being whole is what needs to be seen and embraced and attended to. So that's the invitation. I mean, an hour and a half every week is not going to be very long to go through these processes, but our commitment is to give you some tangible tools so that this talk is not just ethereal, it's actually practical. So when we talk about fear, from fear to wisdom, I mean, being diagnosed with breast cancer or any sort of diagnosis calls the survival instinct forward, fear. And when fear grips us, it stocks, it basically emits the energy stuck. Fear is a very powerful emotion. And so it's important to know how to navigate. I'm not saying not have any fear, but how do we get into the deepest message of fear so that there's something that gets unlocked so that, healing happens again. Mobilizing anger. Why? Because we talked about it today. Anger is action. When it's stuck, it's not moving. And if it's moving, it's making you connect and commit to healing 100% yourself. And connecting heart and spirit, coming back to the spiritual practice. There's a few books out there written, and one of them is called Radical Remission by Dr. Kelly Turner. And she identified 9 factors. And then she wrote another book called Radical Hope, where she had a 10th factor. But there were common factors that people who experienced radical remission actually went through. And one of them is faith. So that's why earlier when you were talking, Suzanne, I was just, no matter what helps you connect to a bigger perspective, do it. Where it's breaking down is when we don't have that connection, that higher consciousness, the connection to higher consciousness. So it's important to have spiritual heart connected to the greater reality. Otherwise, we're limited. This is just me, my little me. And I don't believe that my little me is just, there's something bigger that is holding us. So I just want to put a little more details here. Any questions or comments on this? Because I know we're running over time. So anybody else? Anybody has questions or comments on this one? No? Okay. So we will send a recording. All of you who have signed up have your name on a mailing list, and you will get the recording from today. Feel free to ask questions if you have anything by email. Or I think that's it, Melissa, right? Is there anything else you want to say, Melissa?
Oh, I think I already said it in the comments, but thank you guys for
yes, thank you all for being here
and for bringing your energy, your questions, your sharing, your presence.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Every time we've done this is the 3rd time we've done this, and every time has been very different. So, which is amazing. So it's exciting. We have a little magical collaboration. So I'm excited to launch next week. I hope to see some of you there. Yeah. And happy 2022. This what you've chosen to step into plants a seed. So it's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today.
All right, everybody. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.